If you're a commission salon or spa owner working nonstop, barely paying yourself, and wondering how in the heck this became your life, you need a serious upgrade. Welcome to the station. Hey friends, welcome back to The Station, the podcast where beauty pros stop second-guessing their leadership and finally build the kind of team, culture, and business that runs without you having to micromanage every piece of it. I'm Bree, founder of the Beauty Biz Agency, and as always, I have my amazing co-host Chandra here with me today. Hey girl, what's up?
Hello. Not much.
Well, today we are talking about one of the hardest things to come back from in business, hiring again after you've been burned. Whether you've been ghosted by a new hire, betrayed by someone you've trusted, or drained by a team member who took more than they gave, it doesn't just mess with your schedule or your revenue. It hits your heart. It hits your confidence. It hits how much you trust yourself to lead again. So if you've ever thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself, not because you love being behind the chair and having everything on your shoulders, but because you're tired of being let down, this episode right here is for you. Look, hiring, it's always a risk, but deciding that it's safer to carry it all yourself, that's how you stay stuck. That's how resentment starts to build up, and that's how burnout becomes your actual business model. You cannot build the salon or spa you actually want if you're still bleeding from what the last hire cost you. Chandra, we've both coached and hired a lot of people, but give me one hire that just totally threw you off and what you learned from it that sticks with you still today.
I think it was honestly one of the first times that I lost somebody to go out on their own. And they took like two people with them. And so the reason I feel like I got so burned was because I didn't really have any inkling that was happening. Like usually I feel like you kind of know something's brewing. I had no idea. And we always give our team, like if we have them kind of call back clients that haven't been in for a while or things like that. So just giving her a list of names and numbers. And so of course she took that and she left. And I felt like so deflated after that because I was like, oh my gosh, like I trust them. I give them these things. I do all these things for them. And then they just, ghost you and leave and take another person with them, or they, take things they shouldn't have taken. But I gave it to her. So then I felt even more burned because I'm like, geez, how did this happen? And so that would be the first time that ever happened to me. I feel like that was a really tough situation to get through. And it did take me a while to get over it. I was afraid to hire more people. Then I got really crazy about the current team that I still had, trying to make sure I knew everything that was going on. And it got a little crazy for a while because of that. So having those situations happen can definitely spin you into a very bad cycle for a while.
They totally do. And a lot of salon owners don't realize it's not just about the one hire that didn't work out. It's about how that experience sticks with you. I'm kind of in the same boat, When it first happened to me, it was two of my top producers. I had to leave the salon for the first time ever. My grandpa was having like a quadruple bypass surgery. And I came back and they were just gone. And it's the way that it changed how I led, how I trusted, and how I showed up that really affected me. I was full of fear. I was full of hesitation. It kind of found its way into every single decision that I started making. And if you don't stop and unpack that, you are going to start avoiding the very thing that can actually move your business forward. I learned this the hard way, and I don't want anybody to go through that. So before we dive in too deep, I want to tell everybody about one of our coaching clients who went through this exact thing. We are just going to call her Kelsey. She is now running a salon with 7 team members and has finally stepped out from behind the chair after 12 years in business. But when she first came to us, she was scared to even think about hiring again. Why? Because a few months earlier, she had hired a stylist who looked perfect on paper. Great presence, great experience, even had a really decent following on social media. But the moment she joined the team, it was like this switch just flipped. Constant drama, missed meetings, backhanded comments to other stylists, and eventually she started creating division with the clients, planting seeds of doubt and making them question the quality of service with other team members. Kelsey did what a lot of us would do. She tried to coach this stylist through it. She had those one-on-one meetings. She gave feedback. She taught accountability, but nothing was working. And by the time that stylist ended up leaving, Kelsey was wrecked. Not just exhausted, but she was actually kind of embarrassed. She started believing she wasn't a good leader, that she couldn't trust her own judgment. And for months, she just avoided hiring altogether. She slipped right back into the reality that so many of us do, cranking it out behind the chair, doing it all herself, and her business suffered in a very negative way. But that's where we stepped in. And we didn't just rebuild her hiring process. We helped her rebuild her identity as a leader. We created a real hiring flow, not just this post and pray type thing. We mapped out structured interviews, value-based questions, and an onboarding process that actually set the tone from the first day they came in to start working with her. But more importantly, we helped her stop letting one bad hire rewrite the whole story about what kind of leader she was. Because it seems to be the commonality here. It's what all of us do. One messy situation, and suddenly we just don't trust our guts anymore. But fast forward to today, 3 of her stylists have now been with her for over a year now. They are growing like crazy. They're steady and they're bought into her culture and her business. And Kelsey is finally back in the seat that she was meant for, leading her business, not chasing fires. Chandra, why do you think it's so common for us as owners to take that one bad hire, that one bad egg, and make it mean that we aren't cut out for leadership anymore?
I think it's because we put so much into that hire, right? Like we think, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one that's going to do this. And this is going to be the one that's going to help me get to here. And this one's going to be a great fit and all of those things. And you really think that at your core. You really put emotionally, not necessarily a lot into the person, but emotionally in your mind, you put that much into that person. So then when something happens or they aren't what you thought they were going to be, I feel like you almost take it to heart, where you take it like personally, like I suck. I don't know how to hire people. I don't understand, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with my business. And I think we just all automatically go to that place instead of, doing that in a different way, which I'm sure we're going to get into. But I think that's why we get so emotionally tied to it, because we really think this is going to be the person, and then it's like, then most of the time it's hard to find that person. So they're not always going to be that. And then you take it like it's your fault.
Yeah, you're right. We, as salon and spa owners, we tend to do almost everything emotionally. And I think that's what we have to stop doing. We have to be emotional people because we want to relate, right? But you can't run a business off of emotions. I think it just shows really how deep the ripple effect of one bad hire can go. You think you're just trying to find help, but what you're really carrying into every single hire that you go to from here on out is that fear, the fear that you're going to get it wrong again, the fear that you'll pour into the wrong person, fear that maybe you're just not cut out to even be a salon owner or a business owner at all. But here's the thing. One bad hire does not define you. And it doesn't have to keep you in this place of that fear and just being stuck. We have to break that cycle. So we're going to walk through 4 exact steps that we coach our salon owners through when they are ready to hire again. And it's not from panic, but from purpose. So this is how you rebuild a hiring strategy that is going to protect your business, your energy, and honestly, your peace. Step number 1 is redefine the role. Don't just refill it. This is where so many salon owners go wrong. Someone leaves and they immediately just try to plug that hole. They do that with like the same position, the same title, the same hours, everything, without ever even asking if that role is what actually makes sense. So here's what to do before you post any kind of hiring ad or anything like that. What role are you truly hiring for? Ask yourself that, because it's important. Are you looking for a commission stylist? Are you looking for an associate? Are you looking for a front desk? Whatever it is, you need to be very, very specific about that role. Then what kind of energy or personality is going to strengthen your culture, not just fit in with it? You want to go further than that. What values are non-negotiables for your team? What behaviors or attitudes are you no longer going to tolerate, no matter how talented somebody is? And what gap are you really, really trying to fill here? This is where you've got to think about the hours, the services, the specialties, not just more help and more services and more revenue. You really got to dig into it deep. If you skip this and you go straight to hiring, you are going to end up talking yourself into someone because they look good on paper or on social media, not because they're the right fit for your studio. Make sure that you use your answers to write out a short, ideal team member profile or whatever you want to call it. It's just this one-page internal document that reminds you who you're actually looking for. And then take that with you into your interview. It's going to keep you anchored when your gut wants to say yes to someone who is not the right fit. Chandra, have you ever defined a role more clearly and realized that it helped you avoid hiring someone who would have been a culture mismatch?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like when we started doing that, we definitely attracted a different type of person. And we really defined it based on like exactly what expectations we had, exactly what our culture was looking for. We really wanted someone that wants to work with a team. You know, when you put those things out there, you start to attract the right kind of people, and the people that aren't won't even apply, you know? And so I think it's really defining more of the characteristics that you're looking for than it is even necessarily the skill level, because a lot of times we could train that. So sometimes the skill level doesn't even always matter. It's more, does this person have the same values we have? Do they want to work in a culture that's like our culture? Are they have a growth mindset? Like, we put those things into that role so that way they know what they're getting into the second that they send their resume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that that's probably step number 2 right there. You know what I mean? Like building a values-based hiring process, not just that technical one. So many salon owners that you and I talk to, they do just hire based on skills, but that's never going to be enough. You can teach anybody technique. You have heard me say this on this podcast. I could teach my husband how to do a balayage. You cannot teach character. You can't. So here's what your hiring process should include. First, a pre-interview application that screens for mindset. You want to include questions like, how do you typically handle conflict with a teammate or a manager? What does accountability mean to you? What would make a salon culture feel safe and supportive to you? And then have them describe their dream salon environment. These questions, they really force people to reflect, and it reveals emotional intelligence really, really quickly. If they rush through with like one-word answers, trust me, you have just saved yourself 6 months of headaches. That's not what you're looking for. And then you want to do a multi-round interview process. So that's going to be important. The first round, personality and values, you're looking for alignment, not perfection, right? That's what it is. Second, bring in a team member or a salon leader so that you're not the only one that's reading the vibe. You will be surprised what your leaders and your team members can tell you about people. And then in the final round, if it fits the role, have them shadow or complete a technical assessment at that point, but don't rush it. This is not just a 30-minute walkthrough. It's not an hour haircut. They need to be in your space for a few hours, probably half of the day, so you can observe how they engage, how they communicate, and how they carry themselves in the real world environment. Chandra, I know both of us use a process like this. Tell people how well it has worked in your studio.
It's a game changer when you're hiring, 100%. When we didn't do it like that before, we went through a lot of people that, you know, we never should have even let in the door. And so changing it like this has not only, it's improved our culture in a way because we do get our other team members involved in the hiring process. So they can get behind whoever we're bringing in as well, which makes a big difference. And then you get to know a person so much more when you are having them come in several times, asking them different kinds of questions in different ways, observing how they work among your team, how they interact with the model or the technical person they're working on. And it really is very eye-opening as to who you're actually going to bring in. We do a lot of those interviews, and there's a lot of people we don't hire. And it weeds them out right away. So it saves you all that time, energy, money. Costs a lot of money to keep rehiring people. So there's definitely, it's a game changer when it comes to building your team.
I agree with that 100%. And I think the third part to this is scenario-based questions. And when we have our BBA members turn in like their interview process, if they have one at all, we don't see these types of questions asked very often. Stuff like, what would you do if a client didn't like their service and they wanted a redo, but you felt like it looked great? How would you respond to that? That says a lot. How would you handle a teammate consistently showing up late or doing something wrong? What does being coached actually feel like to you? What kind of feedback shuts you down, and what actually motivates you? You have to ask questions like this. You can't just fall in love with their resume or their Instagram. You have to hire based on how they think, respond, and connect. It's very important. Culture killers, they usually hide behind great portfolios. Anybody can show up for a 30-minute interview and make it look and sound great, right? In fact, some of the worst hires that I've seen, they had the best aesthetics, but let's be honest, a great balayage, that doesn't mean they're going to have great behavior. It really doesn't. Chandra, what's one interview question that you absolutely love asking that really helps reveal how someone thinks, not just what they've done or what they can do?
I think one of the ones that we always get a lot of insight on is kind of the question of how would you handle someone who's upset, or how do you handle a conflict with a coworker? We just had somebody we were interviewing the other day that we asked that to, and she told us that she had a client who was upset, and she got other stylists in the salon to come over to convince the client that it was fine. And we were like, okay, well, that's, right then and there, and said, thanks for applying, but, good luck. Because there's little things like that they say, and they will open up and tell you some of the weirdest things when you start asking those kinds of questions, and it just immediately tells you, like, okay, that's awesome. And then we just move on to the next, because we know that's going to be a problem person, and their ego comes out when you ask those kinds of questions. When you ask somebody more questions about things they've done wrong and how they handled those things they've done wrong, that I feel like when their ego comes out a lot, because a lot of people don't want to admit that they made a mistake or that they had an issue or something happened. And so if their ego comes out like that, because she was very much, no, I didn't do anything. And then, I got other coworkers to convince the lady that it was fine. That's terrible. So
I'm telling you, some of the stories, we should probably do an episode over that, because we have so many great stories. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So you want to redefine the role. Then you want to make sure you have the 3-step interview process, right? Step number 3 in this is treat onboarding as a trial period, not a welcome party. We have to be honest. Most salon owners are so relieved to finally have somebody hired that they just jump straight into, hey, here's your station. Here's the break room. Let me know if you have any questions. But onboarding, that is where most of your leadership power gets lost. So here's how to structure a high accountability, values-driven onboarding experience that's actually going to work. Number 1, create a 30, 60, and 90-day roadmap. Break it into 3 simple checkpoints. 30 days, are they adjusting well? Are they coachable? Any immediate concerns that you have? 60 days, are they following through without constant reminders? Are they connecting with your team? 90 days, are they meeting both performance and cultural standards consistently? Are they someone that you actually want to build with long term? And that's something you really, really need to think about. I know for me, Chandra, there's been times where people haven't necessarily done anything wrong per se on a performance level, but I could just tell that it wasn't somebody that I would actually want to build with long term. Have you ever had anything like that happen?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we've definitely gone through that quite a few times with people. I think that, those things, if they don't feel like they're going to fit into the whole picture, then, and you can tell, when people aren't within those first 90 days, we definitely just let them go. It's a trial period.
Well, and
So,
that's the thing. I think
Mhm.
more salon owners need to stand up and be like, this just isn't a good fit. It just isn't a good fit. Because what happens is so many pour into them for a year and a half, and then it all comes to a head, right? When it could just stop within that 30, 60, or 90 days. Okay, step number 2 in the onboarding is use written expectations from day one. Don't just tell them, show them everything in writing. That should include things like attendance and communication protocols, performance benchmarks like services performed, rebooking rate, retail goals, all of those things, behavioral standards, how they interact with the team, how they treat your guests, and how they take care of the space. And then your core salon values, but not just listed. You want to show those values and what they actually look like in action. And then the third part of this is schedule weekly touch points, 15 to 20 minutes a week. They make a huge difference. You want to use that time to check in. How are they feeling? What support do they need? Where are you noticing early patterns, both good and bad? And then address those. And if you spot a red flag, do not wait. Use that check-in or schedule another one to coach them early and often, because waiting things out is never going to fix them. It's just going to confirm them and probably make them worse. Chandra, where do you think most salon owners lose their power during onboarding, and how can they fix that pretty quickly?
I think if they're not staying consistent on those check-ins, staying consistent on the things that they're supposed to be doing, that's how they kind of lose that power, because then the person's now gone off and started doing things their own way, or started doing things in a, totally different from what you want. And then you have to try to go in and reel it back in. So I think if you can stay that consistent, really communicating clearly what's expected of them, and what, where they're at with their journey with your salon or spa, then it's much easier for them to know what they need to do, and then you to keep that power and keep that consistency throughout that training and onboarding process. Because I've been guilty of that before too. I'm like, cool, this person's got it. They are like, great. So then we might slack off a little bit on a couple of those, keeping up with where they're at, making sure they're still, growing into the space and doing the things that, they need to understand and learn. And then all of a sudden we have a problem because something fell off and nobody did anything, and then they started doing it their own way. So that first 90 days is really your chance to mold them into what you want. And if you lose that in that first 90 days, then it can be very hard to fix.
100%. All right. So we have redefined the role. We have created our interview process. We have created onboarding, and we're going to start treating it the way that it needs to be treated. And then number 4 is going to be really, really important, probably the most important step. You have to heal your leadership story before you ever hire again. You have to do this. If you do not process what's happened with the last hire or with previous hires that you're still holding resentment for, you are going to lead every new person with that quiet fear, and it's not going to work out. And that fear, it shows up as avoiding delegation, micromanaging little things, withholding trust, assuming that you have to constantly watch your back. And guess what? Your new team, they're going to feel that energy, even if you don't say a word. So before you bring anybody new in, reflect on this. Write these questions in your journal or in your leadership notebook and really, really reflect on them. What did I learn from that experience? What boundaries did I skip or avoid? What conversations did I delay that should have happened quite a bit earlier? What was not mine to carry from that situation? I love that question. I always learn so much from asking myself that question. And then how can I lead differently this time with clarity and with courage? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about taking your power back so the past doesn't lead the future. There is wisdom in what went wrong. You just have to slow down long enough to grab it before you rush into the next thing. Okay, Chandra, we just went through those 4 super important steps. Out of those 4 steps, which one do you think makes the biggest difference in helping someone move from that fear-based hiring into real confident leadership? And what would you say to the salon owner who is just terrified to try hiring again?
I think the biggest thing is really defining what you're looking for and defining what you want and knowing exactly who you're trying to put into that space. I think that's one of the biggest things. And I think getting through that fear, it actually helps you get through that fear once you actually know yourself, what you're looking for, instead of just trying to fill a chair, trying to fill an empty spot. You're really looking for a very specific person. And I think once you define that, you can start to build your culture with those people that fit into that mold and are aligned with what you're looking for. And it starts to take that fear away from you because you're not kind of in that, we talk about scarcity a lot, but I feel like we hire a lot based on that scarcity moment, and we're already afraid we're going to get burned again, but we didn't actually know what we were looking for when we got burned and we hired the wrong people. So I think when you really clearly understand that and get yourself in that mindset, it will help kill both of those things and help you fix that.
Yeah, I love that answer. And that is one of my favorite things about this podcast is we see things differently, right? Like you're up here on number 1 and I'm here on healing your journey first. And so I think it's really cool that everybody can hear different sides because they may think more like you and be like, that's what I need to do, or more like me. And so that is one of my favorite things about this. Okay, so we covered the mindset, we covered the structure, and we covered the strategy that you need to rebuild your hiring process after you've been burned. Let's wrap up with a question from one of our listeners. This came from Tasha in Oregon, and she asked, what do you do when it feels like you care more about the business than your team does? I feel like this one hits deep, and I feel like I say that every week, but it really, really does. And I think a lot of owners have felt this exact thing. They just don't say it out loud, or they don't have a support system that they can talk to about it. Here's the truth. It may not be that your team doesn't care. Maybe it's really that they don't carry the same weight as you do. And you know what? I don't want to burst your bubble, but they're not supposed to. They're not. You're the one who loses sleep when revenue is low. You're the one who worries when rebooking slips or when payroll is super tight. But just because your team isn't showing up with the same urgency, that doesn't mean that they are lazy or that they are uninvested. It might just mean you haven't built the right structure for shared ownership. We have to talk about that transparency. So here's what helps. Set measurable team goals that connect their effort to the outcome. Recognize small wins out loud so they can see what matters and see that they're seen. And stop trying to guilt them into caring. Teach them how their role is going to contribute to something bigger. And if you really want them to step up, stop carrying it all for them. Stop. Let them hold a piece. Growth always feels better when they've earned it, not when you've rescued it. Chandra, what would you say to a salon owner who's starting to feel resentful that their team isn't showing the same level of ownership? And what's one way to shift that dynamic without losing your mind or your heart in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like this too at some point in my career. And I think is they, like you said, they don't carry all the weight. So they're not ever going to be as invested in the same way as you are. And they're not going to feel the same way about the business as you are, because you're the one that's carrying all the risk. You're the one that's doing everything. But I think the biggest turning point and something that you can really do to help make this better is having a clear plan for them to grow with the business, like making sure that they know, like you kind of said, this is what they're carrying. This is their part. If you do your part, we all get here. And that helps invest them more, I think, behind the bigger picture of what you're trying to do. And they get concerned about the business. Like once we started doing that, even when we're trying to hit our hair color waist benchmark, then the whole team is getting into it. Like, oh, we can't be wasting product. You guys got to, like, everybody's holding each other accountable and they're caring about the things that I care about because we've tied that to their future growth and how that's going to make things better for them. So I think really maybe having that transparent conversation with them and letting them know, you can grow here. I want you to grow. This is how we all have to grow. And so getting them invested in that way will help make it easier. But again, like you said, not to burst your bubble, it's never going to be 100% the same ever because it's not. It's your business. It's not their business, right? It's kind of their business, but it's not. And so getting them that motivation, I think, as long as they know where they're going and they know how they contribute and they know how it's going to affect not only them, but everyone in the business, I think that you can get them more aligned with caring about what the business is doing.
And salon owners are notorious for being one of two ways. They either constantly rescue their team members, right? Like making changes, not holding them accountable, not having structure, not pushing them a little bit. Or, like we said earlier, they're so rigid that it's just nothing but numbers and nothing but the data. And so you've got to find that happy medium. It's the only way that you are going to be able to build that growth mindset inside of your business. And the only way that your employees are going to care more about their success, which in turn, they care more about the business's success. If you take nothing else away from this episode, let it be this. You are allowed to protect your business without punishing the people who haven't hurt you. You have to remember that. Just because one employee hurt you doesn't mean every new hire is going to, or it doesn't mean the current hires that you have now are going to. You're allowed to learn from what went wrong without letting it define you. And you're fully capable of building a team that respects your boundaries, supports your vision, and actually makes your business better, not heavier. The truth is, being burned doesn't mean that you're a bad leader. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It just means you're human and you have feelings. But you don't have to stay stuck in that story. You get to lead differently this time around. And if you are ready to stop hiring from fear and start hiring from clarity, we can absolutely help you. At the Beauty Biz Agency, we walk with you step by step through defining your ideal team member, building your hiring flow, writing your onboarding plan, and showing up like a confident, grounded CEO, not some frantic manager that's just putting out fires. Visit www.thebeautybizagency.com to explore our coaching options and some free tools and resources that we have, or reach out if you're ready for deeper support. And hey, if this episode helped you maybe just breathe a little bit deeper or gave you the clarity that you've been looking for, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow salon owner who's been burned before and needs to know that they're not alone. This is how we change the leadership culture in this industry, one honest conversation at a time. Chandra, tell everybody how they can stay connected and keep up with all of the amazing things that we have going on at the Beauty Biz Agency.
Yeah, reach out to us on social media at the Beauty Biz Agency on Facebook or Instagram. You can also shoot us an email at admin@thebeautybizagency.com. We would love to hear from you guys and give you some support. Share with us any questions you might like us to answer. Let us know how some of these episodes have helped you. We would love to hear from you. And then also we have the first Monday of every month, we're hopping on Facebook and YouTube live at 7 p.m. Central Time. And you can hop on those too and get some, good insights or any questions answered. So definitely connect with us.
Amazing. Well, you've been listening to The Station, where beauty pros stop playing small and start leading like the powerful CEOs they are. Until next time, lead like it matters, build like it lasts, and never let fear make the final decision. Now go out there, make bank, run the show, and ditch that chair. And as always, keep slaying those business goals with a whole lot of swagger.